Hello, welcome back to Touchline Talk. Here with me, Simon Goodey, and my special guest today is Ash Seville. Ash, great to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me here.
Nice. I'm really looking forward to this one, Ash. The conversation and stuff we've had in the past, and obviously I've been watching your journey from afar and where you are now, and where you've come from and what your pathway to your role and position now is really interesting. Obviously, you're currently working abroad and stuff like that. So again, a nice little flavour to what we're trying to add on to here. So Ash, just give us a quick little brief introduction in terms of yourself and what you're currently doing at the moment.
Yeah, so my current role is I'm head coach at TPV in Tampere in Finland, and we play in the fourth tier. Alongside that, I'm the lead, I guess you'd say, lead phase coach for the 17s to 21s. That was the role that I originally came over to here, and then kind of progressed into the first team role as well. I do those alongside each other. So there's a very good pathway at the moment because I know every player from down to the 15s basically, and I with the coaches we discuss a lot about those players and where we can see their pathways and yeah, some of the experiences we want to give them, which is working pretty well at the moment.
Yeah, I guess that's quite a unique thing to be able to have the chance to do. Obviously, having already worked with that sort of 17s and upward group, and then obviously transition into the senior team to know those players and to still be in that sort of role. I guess for player development, for those players, for the club, for you, obviously now in that senior role, I guess also for the club, it's brilliant to have because your knowledge of those players to be able to know when is the right time to give those players the opportunity to move into the first team. And obviously, like any club, when I guess when you're a fan or you're from outside and you see local talent and local players coming through and playing for the first team, even I guess as head coach for yourself is probably quite a rewarding moment to be able to have.
Yeah, and kind of the more recent history of the club. The club went up to the second tier, spent too much money, and moved down the tiers as we've had to kind of focus more on the youth. So my first year when I was with the under 20s and the 17s, as like on the grass coaching those players, a lot of our players were then in the first team. We discussed now maybe it was a little bit too early for them, but the club needed players in the first team, and that was the pathway. And when I came in my second year into the first team, my first job was actually to stop, like to plug that hole a little bit and make it a little bit harder for players to get into the first team, like stop them leapfrogging straight in there and try and give them a smoother transition and be a little bit more ready for when they went in there because we found maybe a few weren't quite ready yet. So now, yeah, that pathway I feel is a lot clearer, and it sounds a little bit backwards, plugging that kind of that gap and stopping it being so easy to get players through. But we felt that now it's a bit more of a challenge, and they're coming in with different experiences now. We have a second team that play men's football. We have the 20s and we have the 17s that are both playing in the second tier of their age groups. So now we've got players that are getting all different experiences at different levels, different types of games, long away trips sometimes for the 17s, playing against men with the second team, and then we've got two under 17s players that play for the first team currently, or they're in our training squad. One's in the squad for tonight's game, and the good part is that I know that is all happening at a lot of clubs, but I'm quite my eye is there a lot, and I know who's playing where, and I have a bit of an influence on whether a player we feel like should get an experience having an easier game, okay, yeah, no, actually, that player needs that more difficult test. They're ready for that men's game, or they're ready to play in the twenties, which has been which is really good for me, and I I hope it's been good for some of those players as well. It definitely helps me as a first team coach, knowing that we're a little bit short on numbers for training. I know exactly which two players to come in and will keep our level um, in that session.
Yeah, I think that's massive, especially as a working with a senior team and heading it up, and then to know that your knowledge of those players in the younger age groups, who and when, because your knowledge of those players is so good. As you were saying before, your ability to then pick who and probably at the right time because your knowledge of those players, and that is the skill of a coach to be able to do that. And obviously that comes through knowing the players, knowing the structure, and obviously with you in your current role having that, obviously for the club, for the long term success of those individuals and those players, obviously that is going to allow you and those players to have the most amount of success. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
looking
think
forward to that.
I think that the right time is like the big part of that. That's where maybe I think about. That's probably what I think about the most. Trying to get the right time. Like there's a few. We've got as a club, we tend to have a few more of the smaller guys or the late developers, and seeing when is the right time to throw them into a physically difficult league, or a harder challenge. We've got one 17s player. He's excellent at the minute. He kind of worked in the 17s, similar to in England. It's a 2 year, like under 18s, you have 2 years. So he would be a first year, and he kind of got himself into that starting team, and probably he would deserve to be playing in the 20s. But we decided actually, rather than him have that extra challenge, now he's actually in a little bit of a zone. Let's let him enjoy the rest of this season, and in the winter he'll make that next physical step up, rather than him jumping up too much when he might just still keep going, 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 but it just takes a little bit of pressure off him. And again, I have to communicate that, and I would say another bonus of that is I'm able to communicate this longer term plan and vision,
Yeah.
because it's not just me making that decision, but I'm the big picture at the end of it that helps that.
Yeah, I think that's key. I think that sort of understanding, and sometimes I think maybe sometimes we can get lost maybe as individuals with always wanting to always challenge the players and always give them the hardest task to always complete. But sometimes it's that varied approach. Sometimes they need to have that challenge, but also as you say, sometimes you need to give them time to actually do what they're successful in and really embed that for long term. And as you say, that ultimately comes through knowing the players, which clearly you've got. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how that carries on for you. But it sounds, the structure that you've got in place sounds fantastic. And I just wanted to just sort of take it back a little bit and sort of go a little bit to the start, because obviously your experience with those sort of age groups started obviously before in England. So just take us back a little bit to where you first started your coaching journey.
Yeah, I'd say I first started my coaching journey was with Brazilian soccer schools. Actually, I failed footballer, needed to find a job, and I was on kind of a job seekers scheme. It was at the time where they put you with 6 months into a company you had to apply for, and I got this 6 month internship with Brazilian soccer schools, and that was kind of the start of that coaching journey. Always wanted to work with these age groups. We can skip further a little bit, but and eventually got that opportunity with Brookhouse, where I was able to work every day with very good players that were 16 to 19 years old. And as an international school, we recruited like there was a lot of youth international players that we were working with, and I had the opportunity to work with these excellent players every day and really, yeah, hone my craft a bit, which was awesome for me to experience that and trial and error, but not just working with English players, working with players from all over the world and starting to solve what maybe a player from Nigeria would need more so than a player from England, or how you might have to talk to these different players or get those ideas across without it's like treating people. I was listening to another podcast and someone said, yeah, treating people fairly, not treating people differently, not treating people the same, but trying to treat people fairly and getting all those experiences of the different personalities, very different personalities. I worked with in the
I guess
5 years there.
that's quite unique, no, to have such a wide range of like people, cultures, and nationalities in that moment in your job there was that's quite unique. That's quite a
Yeah,
special.
yeah, yeah, and as well, like it doesn't really happen so much even in pro clubs because of it's difficult to recruit from all these. It's a little bit different now, but difficult to recruit from all these places. And because we were a school, we were capable of bringing players in to study with us, which was great. But yeah, it was quite unique, and I think slowly now the reputation of the school is growing and growing and growing to be one of the best at continuing to develop footballers in the UK. And I remember at the time you could get a little bit frustrated that you'd be working with this player that you just knew had the ability, but it's very difficult to prove that at the time. And yeah, now it's going from strength to strength as a school and as a development program as well.
Can you
Yeah.
hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I've got you. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
You
No.
got me?
So yeah, I've got you. Yeah, it just cut out a little bit. So no, yeah. I mean, sounds fantastic to obviously have the opportunity to work with players, obviously, who are really good standard, and to have some of those players come from different parts of the world. I mean, one of the things that has really interested me in my journey, especially, is trying to better understand different cultures, and as you said before, better understanding different types of people. And I guess in those experiences there, what were some of the things that you took away from the different players coming from different parts of the world?
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any specific experiences. I mean, what one of the something just jumps to mind now is we would also work with players that would come over from China, and a lot of them, their English would be very minimal. And this was when I first started, so I was working with what we called the development squad. So they weren't necessarily the best players, but they were maybe a little bit younger, or yeah, we were looking to develop them. That's how we worked it. And yeah, so you're working with maybe a squad, loads of different nationalities. We had a Spanish boy in there who, again, he didn't speak that much English at the time. But I remember one of the Chinese boys came over, and he didn't yet have an English name, and his name was Lin Shuang. And I was like, oh, what about Lewis? And like his name then became Lewis, and it was just kind of nice of that. Oh, okay, like having that impact, such a small impact, but that then became his name for the next. I don't know if he potentially still uses it now as an English as his English name. Those little things like that, and I was able to travel as well. Like I went to China 2 years in a row, which was really good. And I travelled to Nigeria with the school, and Bulgaria and Australia and all these places. So seeing the players when they would come over, but also being able to visit and have those deeper conversations. Like even now, if I meet someone or I work with a player from Nigeria, the fact that I've been in Nigeria, is a good thing. And but yeah, those little moments where you're having to connect on a deeper level without language. Language doesn't always have to be there. Is always nice.
Yeah, I think you look at how, especially football is at the moment, and obviously top end, and even even the world and even life now. You look at how multicultural we are, how many more people are moving abroad, living in different countries, and I think especially as within football and as in coaching, I think from a personal perspective, those relationships you build up with your players, the relationships you have with other coaches, other support staff, parents, whatever, whoever the stakeholders are. You're saying there, how many countries and different places you'd visited while you were there, and I guess that probably allowed you really to get a good understanding and a good sense of how to connect with different people. And as you say there, you felt much more comfortable and were able to build up a good relationship with a player from Nigeria because you'd been there, you sort of seen and you'd lived that culture for a period of time. So then those relationships are not just don't know how the best way to say it, but they mean something more because you've been to their country, you've seen what their culture's like, and it just gives you that sort of upper hand and that ability to build a bit more of a real relationship with those players, which I guess I'd love to know. But from your perspective, when you're in those moments in sessions, or when things are going well or things are going bad, you're able to have a stronger conversation with those players and help them probably more so than maybe someone else.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I guess it's just trying to. Like I've always loved travel, and it does really broaden your mind and broaden like what you think of the world and how you think of everything. And even more so if you live outside the UK and you then look back into the UK, it really opens your eyes to a few things. But yeah, I think I found like this year we're quite a multicultural club, and we had players from we've got a lot of players from Afghanistan. So 2 years ago, when there was the regime change there, don't want to make this political, but had to have I like was speaking with players and just asking like, do you have any family there, and this and that, and just being a little bit more empathetic. That's not come through anything more than just thinking about that. And we have a player currently in the first team who's from Myanmar, which used to be Burma, and there's a lot of conflict going on there at the minute. And just having just dropping in and having little check-ins with him, not necessarily about that, but just thinking about it and having it on my mind a little bit. I think does help and brings that closer connection. And I think within the players as well, we haven't really done this yet, and it's something that I want to do eventually, is bringing those cultures together so they're speaking more and they know more about each other, especially in a multicultural environment that we still have here. It's important that they know that a little bit more about each other, so when things maybe go are become a little bit tougher, you're not just digging deep for each other, you're kind of digging deep for each other's families, because you know that family connection of what it means to that individual player. And maybe I do take a little bit of that into my yeah into the game as well.
Which I guess kind of leads us quite nicely, obviously, with those sort of international experiences and your pathway to that point. And obviously you mentioned before, you love travelling. Uh, after that, where did you go and why, and how did
Yeah, so
Iceland sort of come about?
yeah, so um, me and my girlfriend had decided to go traveling. I'd always wanted to work abroad, and I felt that had I stayed, if I'd stayed at Brook House, I would always want to finish a season because there would be that little, I don't want to leave the boys behind. Like, unfinished business would always kind of keep coming in as an excuse. So I decided to quit and go traveling, and we went around South America. And I've always gone and visited clubs and visited different countries. So while we were in South America, continued doing that a little bit, and I reconnected with someone that I'd met in Iceland who had, who was also traveling around South America. So we were kind of going back and forth on Twitter, just speaking about where we were going next, where we'd been, what we recommended, and this and that. And I think a few months into traveling, he heard about a job that had opened up and asked if I wanted to put my CV in, and yeah, it went from there basically. It kind of had an interview while I was in Peru. Got told, I think I must have been offered the job just after I'd been to Machu Picchu, I think it was.
Oh wow,
And
yeah.
then, um, and then had to readjust my travel plans to get over there in time for a January start.
Wow, that is quite a story.
I think
Oh,
I've
I've
got
got
you
you.
back now.
Yeah, this is the internet in Finland, no? Are we blaming it on Finnish Wi-Fi?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Wi-Fi is not
I
great.
was I was
It's
saying that it's
my girlfriend hates it. She has it, of course.
no, I was saying that and just you know it's funny sometimes how those opportunities come about and obviously to get the job and to have to change plans and stuff like that. It's very much football. Talk to me about the role. How was it? How was how was it there?
Yeah, it was very much a one-man band. I was coach, physio, goalkeeper coach. Alice, my girlfriend, helped doing a little bit of marketing and this and that, and yeah, it was very much getting my hands dirty into everything, which actually was really good because I have a new kind of a new understanding of those other little roles that come with being a coach that you kind of I'd maybe forgotten about a little bit, and I had to get myself more involved into. It was yeah, I was head coach. I also would help out with the kids, although there was another youth coach there. But it was small village on the East Coast. Probably will be the best views that I'll ever have on a training ground or a stadium or when we're doing the dishes. Honestly, it was really really nice. Definitely, it was the first place where I'd really, although I'd travelled a lot, I'd say it's the first place. The first place in Europe where I'd seen or I'd felt a different culture because I'd really lived there. I'd travelled a lot but never lived somewhere. So being there for obviously an extended period of time and living there, that gives you that different sense of culture of how things are. And
I mean,
that,
when that opportunity came up, like, and it was like, right, there's a position here in Iceland. Like, how much about Iceland did you know before? Did you do much research before? Because it's a very unique place to go and to work.
yeah, I'd visited before and I had an idea. I asked a lot of questions to the chairman, which he was a great guy. He kind of really worked closely with him, and he was fantastic. Like throughout my stay there, so I asked a lot of questions to him. How does away games look like? This and that, and you start problem solving these challenges that are facing you. Obviously, we're on the east coast over here. Reykjavik is over here. Um, it was 9 hour drive to get to away games one
Wow.
way. Sometimes we would fly, but even flying, that would be a 2.5 hour drive, a flight, and then you'd play, and then you'd fly 2.5 hour drive. So you're still doing 5 hours of driving. So those were difficult, and had an idea about, and you try and solve it as much as possible, but it is just brutal. Um, a friend of mine had worked there for previously, and then ended up working there again. So I had an idea, but I'd probably say was it was a really good learning, not just football wise about myself as a coach, but also what we wanted in terms of lifestyle. There were so many positives with the lifestyle because it's one of those places. If they'll just be like kids, they'll just go out and play in the summer. Like there's nobody's worrying about them. They're just going out and playing. So it's very chilled, and you can go for walks and lots of nature and this and that. But like we found the village was a little bit too small for us, a little bit too secluded, maybe not necessarily that it was small, but it was 2 hours to get to a big supermarket. There was a local small supermarket, and that just started us thinking what would the ideal location look like, and having a little bit of a checklist of that. So, like now, our checklist is things like we like to have something with water. It might be a lake, it might be a river, it might be the sea, or forest slash mountain, somewhere that we can get out in the outdoors. A city is kind of a little bit of a loose term, but fairly well populated, or I'd say like a town or larger, and other little things like that. And it's not set in stone that somewhere would need to tick all these boxes, but it's there where we compromise, and they're the things that we look at alongside the opportunity now. Then it was opportunity to coach football, opportunity to do what I kind of wanted to do for years. There's no way I'm not making this happen, kind of thing. So it was probably not naive, but jumping in and giving it a go.
Yeah, I guess that's the unique thing that actually football gives gives us. You know, we have the opportunity to almost go as long as we have the willingness. You know, we have the opportunity to go anywhere in the world and to coach. And I was talking to someone else this week, and I was like, why did you move there? So there's another person I was talking to that had come to Spain, a guy called Kevin. I was like, so what was your reason to come to Spain? He was like, it's about lifestyle. I wanted to come to Spain and enjoy the lifestyle. The football was a secondary thing, and it was the lifestyle that was most important to us. And it's a really nice way of looking at it, and a little bit similar to myself. It's like, well, if kind of what you want to do from a football perspective isn't possible, actually, where can you also go to do your football, but also still enjoy your lifestyle? So, for me, coming to Spain was somewhere that I kind of got the best of both. And obviously, for yourself to go to Iceland and now to be in Finland, it's you kind of go, as you're saying, where there's some nature, you've got a bit of a town or a city nearby, and the lifestyle is a big factor. I think sometimes we forget that importance a little bit. So it's quite interesting and refreshing to actually hear that from a couple of people, that some of these decisions that we are making as professionals within the game are actually also based on that lifestyle perspective.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that's kind of I have ambitions. I want to do as well as I can as a coach, and that's long term. But also, I'm like, if I continue doing what I'm doing now without really progressing drastically, I'd be happy because I'd be traveling, I'd be moving to these different places and working in new environments and with a lifestyle that I enjoy. So I'm kind of like, if this is the base that I can go down to, then it's like
It's good.
it's not. Yeah, yeah. It's not. It's certainly not bad. It's certainly not bad.
I mean, on the other side of that, how have you found? I don't know. I want to just touch on a little bit in terms of kind of just progress a little bit onto where you are and the position you're at now, and just sort of in between those, what's been the language challenges? You know, what have you found from that perspective, and going going through?
Yeah, in Iceland, I say my Icelandic like it was strong. I could command quite well, and I understood a good amount of Icelandic in just the 10, 11 months that I was there. So if someone was having a conversation in Icelandic, I would have a gist of what they were saying and would be involved, but in English. In Finnish, I'm now at that level now where I can understand bits. If I'd be honest, I've not really put anywhere near the amount of effort that I maybe should have into to learning it. But in my in my defence, in the first 2 years I was here, I was very much the first year I was head coach of two youth teams, the 17s and the 20s. So there was a lot of coaching and a lot of games. My second year, I was actually doing the first team, but we were a couple of coaches down. So I was also coaching the 20s and the 17s as well. So there really wasn't any time. This year now, I've probably got a little bit more time to do it. So I don't have an excuse now. But it's not been a problem here. Everyone's English is excellent, and it was the same in Iceland. English was excellent, and it's it's a balance really. I'd love to have a little bit just to say those, have the more personal conversations in their native language. But I think in football, unless you are gonna have been there for a long time, it's difficult to get the detail at the quality that you would like in another language, or in a language as difficult as Finnish. So that I think would have been English anyway, but I would have liked to have had the more personal conversations in English. How was school and this and that, and but I'm not at that level. I'm not at that level or near that level yet.
Well, you've got a little bit of a task to try and move on this year, then, no?
Yeah, yeah. It's we have another English coach, and he's he's starting to learn a little bit more than me. So he's not learning more than me. He's starting to try to learn with
Yeah.
more effort than I am, should I say? But yeah, it's one of those. I feel like at the moment it's not a high priority, but I do always think being able to say a few things in someone's language goes a really long way.
Yeah, no, it does, and I think that sort of transitions us quite nicely into sort of the role you're currently doing now. Just really keen to know a little bit about how that came about, how that happened, and then just give us a little bit of information on the club and the situation and how you've found the journey with the team so far.
Yeah, kind of the opposite, not the opposite of the Iceland one, really. Because of COVID, it was a bit unsure whether I would continue the next year. It wasn't that it wasn't going to happen, but it was waiting to see how COVID looked over that winter period, because the UK was having like a new wave in, I guess it was 2020 still. And I just decided I'm not going to not have a job. I know I needed a second job. I know a lot of people who have coached abroad, they've had that one role and found it difficult to get the second. And I know I want the second job, and I don't want to go back to the UK. So literally spent, probably it was about 2 weeks, email, like going on every single team in Scandinavia's website, Facebook, seeing if there was anything about any roles up, and emailing people. And fortunately, this role had actually closed, but it hadn't closed. It closed in terms of the dates that were on there, but I sent an email anyway, just seeing whether they were still looking, and it hadn't closed. And yeah, interviewed and went from there really. So it was pure. That was pure graft. Like
Yeah,
it
that
was
sounds like it. Like,
severe graft.
yeah, man, fair play to that. Like to even when you see a job and it's closed and you still go for it. Like a lot of people probably would just go, well, that's it, and just move on. But fair play to that persistence, and well, obviously testament to that persistence. Obviously, to come out with the job at the end of it must have been obviously really satisfying.
Yeah, and it's not easy to sit kind of day after day and just look at a computer screen and without anything being given back for that time. So for them, for it to kind of evolve into this was has been awesome. And there is those two ways of kind of finding these roles. Like one, I always say you've got to go and visit people and talk to people, and the other one is doing things like I did. And the final part is actually going and taking the risk and saying yes and going and trying it. I think that's kind of the third part that people get close to, but maybe don't don't actually do.
I mean, it is like obviously the idea behind obviously what we're trying to do here with the channel and stuff like that is obviously try to give people the confidence to say, look, these opportunities are available to you, and you know, it's not not every single position, not every single job is 100% fail safe, and I've heard stories before where people go and things have changed and the job's no longer there, or people have had different challenges, or you get there and it's not what you expected. And I guess what you're saying there, and I guess the sort of the idea behind what we're trying to do is to show people there are pathways for people abroad.
Hmm.
Obviously, it has many benefits, and obviously England is extremely competitive. It's really challenging, obviously, to get to a certain level or to try to progress in your pathway, but also to improve you as a person and as a coach. And those relationships, there's no wonder why you look at so many coaches, you look at the players, even in the Premier League, and it's so multicultural. There's so many coaches that have come from abroad, and their experiences um, obviously are just different. There's not to say anyone's
Mm.
better or worse, but they're just different. And I think that perseverance that you've shown, and you first of all taking the job in Iceland, and then heading over to Finland, and that really coming through is just such perseverance from your part, and just knowing that you don't. I'm just not going to allow this to be the only job I have, and obviously fair, massive credit to yourself, and obviously having a supportive partner alongside that is obviously massive. You really can't underestimate how important that is. Obviously, if you're single, then those things are obviously a lot easier. It just depends on you. But obviously, when you're in football and you've got a partner, then it's
Yeah,
it's a lot harder.
yeah, she's been she's been fantastic, and I think even like you said about if people are single, I think that does make it more difficult in a way. It makes it easy because you're like, only I need to make this decision. But then when you're
Yeah,
there, it's actually you're going through this all on your own. Whereas
support networks.
Iceland
Yeah,
was, yeah, Iceland, she was so supportive to me. And actually now I work with other people so that she's not that person that I have to kind of solve all my problems with. But yeah, you do need that support, and it sounds quite brutal, but you do really need to think about like we spoke about lifestyle a lot. How does my life look right now in England? It's not easy to move, like I would say, a whole family abroad. It's really difficult,
yeah.
but it's possible to move even with Brexit, like a girlfriend or a wife. That is possible. And it's not impossible to move a family, but you have to be aware that I would say the money is not endless. Like it's going to be hard to support that, but the hours are here. Like the hours on the field are definitely here. Like I coached last year something stupid like I think it was like 60 something games, and it must have been two. I think I was doing three sessions a day, nearly 7 days a week last season. And I maybe had a few weeks off, so I must have done two to 300 max, like even more, minimum 200 to 300 sessions, and they're not always going to be as high quality because you're doing them back to back sometimes. But in terms of what I learned from, okay, what can I get away with me being low energy and actually make a good session still, or what do I need to have more depth to what I'm saying? What do I need more energy to actually give out? Um, I learned a lot from that, and yeah, I think that's what's definitely out there, and it is there in the UK. It just looks a lot different, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no way you get through that period of time. You've done 60 games and you've done 2 or 3 sessions a day. There's absolutely no way you can't come out of those days and weeks not improving and not reflecting and not being a better coach for that. And obviously working in senior setups and having those experience of those younger age groups before in England has probably set you up really well to obviously go and have success where you are now. And yeah, it's fascinating the challenges that you put yourself in when you go abroad, and it's good to know that you do have challenges. There are challenges when you go abroad, but you know, probably from where you are now, you're looking at reaping those benefits and rewards through going through those challenging times. And as you say, you're in a place that you enjoy being. That lifestyle accompanies your football and just gives you the best of both worlds. Where okay, if the football is not going so well, at least you're somewhere that you really enjoy being in and working.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say that's probably the biggest lesson from Iceland was I got so ingrained in trying to make the football work. We did still do stuff, but I was very much that was where my mind was. My mind now, I'm much better at like disconnecting from things, and that's been a very long process. It'll be interesting to see how I feel after today's game, but most games, regardless of result, I have genuinely very much felt not getting too high on the highs or too low on the lows, and that's been a kind of a long process, and I do think getting out of the bubble of the UK does help. It gives you a different perspective on things like Finland or Scandinavia in general. It's all about going out there and doing stuff. It's all about going to the summer cottage, going to the forest, going and being on the lake. Not so much about yeah, going and maybe going to the pub or every single weekend or
Yeah.
this or that.
I, I,
It's very different in that way.
Yeah, I guess that opportunity to completely disconnect, but also to reflect with no distractions is probably a really good learning tool. Actually, to when you're in nature, and I'm with you on that one. I love going to the forest here and stuff like that, and you take those moments of just absolute tranquility to just completely reflect on the things that you're doing, and your accomplishments that you've done. Obviously, where you are at the moment, the team is going pretty well. So looking forward to seeing how your season sort of carries on and moves on, because the team and stuff are doing pretty well.
Yeah, we're top at the minute. As this, I imagine, after this goes out, we'll have just played a pretty tough game, whenever that'll be. But yeah, it's been a good season so far. Very similar to last season. We finished second last season on goals scored. So that's been an interesting challenge to have to win or find a way to win or be expected to win in nearly every game. Tonight we spoke about being comfortable with not losing. That's if we don't lose today, that's brilliant. But we're still trying to win, and it's taken time for the players to understand that. And I think that's probably been the hardest challenge is the difference culturally here with how open and how much people would speak and would give their ideas. And I feel like I've just slowly chipped away at that they'll share a lot more. And that's been excellent. Like I think regardless of where we finish at the end of this season or where we win, whether we win or we draw or we lose today, there's definitely been some development. And at the start of the season, I or sorry, in the winter actually, between the two seasons, I was finding it really difficult to see where I'd had impact. And I'm not saying I'm the sole provider of this impact, but now I'm starting to slowly see those little things, and it does take time. Like we've got players now that have been playing up, and we've moved them up at the right time, and we feel like they're really doing well. And there's players that are like we had a player. I asked what was everyone's favorite game. It wasn't anonymous, but it was like on the computer, so they didn't have to physically say it, which was easier. And everyone said the team that we were playing. Pretty much everyone said the team that we're playing tonight. And one player's answer was the team that we're playing tonight. Well, Nops. It was a great game. We played really well. We fought to the end, and even though I didn't play, I felt a part of the team. And the fact that's how someone felt was huge. I was like, that's brilliant. Like the fact that someone knows their role in that game was that they weren't going to get on the pitch, and they were just there to support. They weren't just there to support the guys, but that's what it ended up being. And they still felt a part of it when we won the game. That's a big change, and that's
Yeah,
something I hope will continue.
yeah. I think that's credit to yourself for creating that sort of environment, and obviously with so much prior experience with some of those players, obviously, hopefully, it looks like you're having those rewards from your years of work with those younger age groups and your knowledge of those players about when to put them up, when to challenge them, when to keep them in their comfort zone, and all of that. Obviously, for them to ultimately then arrive to the first team with you at the right time, given those opportunities at the right time, is something that with your role and how that encompasses those different stages of their pathway is something that ultimately you will see success from because of the prior work that you've done and the knowledge and the relationships that you've built with those people and those players. So yeah, I'm wishing you all the best for tonight. I'm wishing you all the best for the
Thank
rest of the
you.
season. Looking forward to seeing how you get on and keeping that trajectory going up, and hopefully you're able to do one better than last year. And with your work that you keep going and stuff, looks really, really, really positive. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how that carries on. I just wanted to, just before we finish, is just get maybe two or three sort of key bits of advice for coaches out there that might be thinking or looking to go abroad, to take a similar sort of pathway to yourself. I know we've touched on a couple of little things, but just to sort of summarise and go, right, these would be your two or three little bits of real key advice for people who are looking to go abroad. What would that be for you?
I'll be quite practical on one. One, when you're trying to go and visit someone or visit a club, don't give, oh, I'm thinking of being here or I'm gonna be here, and you give like a broad date. Just say, I'm gonna be here on this date. Are you available? Because nine times out of ten, they'll say yes or they'll say no, but I'm available then. And like in the same way, that's if someone messaged me and said a broad date, I go, I don't really know what I'm doing that week. But if someone's went, okay, I'm here on the Tuesday, yeah, I can do Tuesday. Let's go for lunch. And I think you see a lot of people trying to go and visit coaches and visit clubs. That's the best way to do it. That's the best way to go and then start that connection, because it's just simple and it's effective, and you'll still get no's and you'll still get people who won't have time and this and that. But if you're thinking of visiting a club and wanting to do some kind of study visit or something along those lines, just be specific about when you're going to be there. You don't have to book the flight, just say I'm going to be there then, and then you work around that. That's definitely one, and that, like I said with Iceland, that can lead to things in the future. And I guess the biggest one, when there's a lot of people who want to move abroad, but then don't necessarily do it. I think the biggest thing is just doing it, taking the leap. If you genuinely want to try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like I'm fortunate that I can kind of say that quite blasé. I don't have a house that I have to worry about or a family or this or that. But if that's truly what you want to do, um, then try it. And there's ways to make everything else work. And if you don't try it, it will always be something that you'll want to do and you might never do. But the biggest thing is saying yes, because I think that's quite a big worry on being on this side, having hired someone from England. Now we've got another coach from England. That's kind of your worry, is that they're going to drop out at the last minute. But if you just go there and go for it and see out that first period of time, then you know how you feel about it. And yeah, they're hopefully two, one practical and one maybe a little bit impractical.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think they're both really, really valid points. I mean, the first point you mentioned in terms of the network, and I said this on a previous episode. I get so many people contact me. I'm sure you're the same. So many people message me and say, "Look, can I come and see you? Or have you got some advice to me? Or can we do this or that?" And it's like, well, okay, yeah, we can do that. But actually, the amount of respect you get from people, if you're expecting people to give up stuff, or you're trying to get something out of it, by you going there, that changes the game. It
Yeah,
really does change the game.
100%, 100%. I went and visited John Wall, who's now with the Jamaican national team. I visited him in Stockholm in 11 years ago. Still speak to him to this day, and it like he said at the time, he was like, "Oh, I can't believe you traveled all this way." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I had to make the effort, kind of thing," and it makes such a big difference, and you'll be
I've got his
surprised
book
at
here,
how.
actually.
Yes. There we go. Rotations and
Yeah,
interchanges. Yeah, good
yeah,
book, good
yeah,
book. Little
yeah,
plug for him. But yeah,
yeah.
making the effort, and you'll be surprised how much hospitality people can show. I just went on holiday to Austria and visited a few clubs, and people were so hospitable, and they want to help. The
Yeah,
same way you'll want to help someone, I want to help someone. That people want to help. You just have to make it little bit easier, a little bit easier for them by maybe being direct or just going and visiting. It's you learn
yeah,
so much
yeah,
more, and the connection is so much better than just, oh, can we do this, like, or just
yeah.
emailing or chatting. Making that effort is key.
No, 100%. Well, Ash, I won't take up more of your time because I know you've got a game tonight. I know it's important. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time. It's been really, really insightful, really useful. Really enjoyed hearing about your journey, and obviously the international flavour that you've got. And I'm sure that a lot of the viewers will be really, really excited and hopefully take away a lot from this episode. If it's okay with you, when I post it, I'm gonna put your Twitter um, handle in the post.
Handle.
So as long as you're happy with that, people can ask you some questions, or if they
Yeah,
want to put any comments in the channel here, and we can get those over to you. And yeah, maybe we might end up with a couple of people heading over your way for a little visit and to watch
of
your team
course.
play.
Yeah. I'm more than happy to speak to anyone. I try and give as much time as I can back to people because I know people have given it to me. So anyone can get in touch with me um, at any time, and I'll do my best to help or give some advice.
No, great stuff, Ash. Well, Ash, thank you very much. All the best tonight. I'm
Thank
going
you.
to be following you guys from here, and hoping that you have a positive end to the season.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Cheers, Ash. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.